Hello everyone, Sat Sri Akal, and welcome back to the Punjabi Pod. It's been a while since we have a conversation, so आज दे अपने guest मेरे नाल जो आए ने is Dr. Kenny Sandhu, and you go by Sandhu, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I better.
And Ronnie, and obviously our PCHS representative Ranjodh Dhaliwal, जो कि अपने नाल ने आज. आज the episode अपना sleep and mental health. So we're going to be talking about sleep and the effect of sleep on mental health overall, and how we can have a better sleep, techniques, and what the effects of lack of sleep is, right? So we're going to start off the conversation there. How it affects our anxiety, our overall mental health, PTSD, and just generally how sleep is affected on our body. So we're going to get into it a little bit more technically and get all the advice that we can from the professionals. So I'm going to kick it off to Dr. Kenny D here, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I thought it would be a good topic to cover because I see a lot of it in my practice. Like I just see a lot of sleep deprivation, people that come in, claim about, complain about chronic insomnia. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, anywhere from 70 to 78% of our population suffers from sleep deprivation and insomnia. Yeah. It's a very common office complaint. And I feel like people skip the kind of main meat and jump to just wanting a sleeping pill. And I mean, we'll talk about this later too in terms of treatment options, but sleeping pills, and I'm sure a lot of people know this, over time actually the side effect is insomnia. So it causes you to sleep less over time, but in the moment, they're lifesavers. So, sleep, like you said, it affects a lot. It affects everything in our life. It affects our concentration, our memory. It affects our irritability, our mood. People that lack sleep are often more irritable, aren't able to focus, especially kids. See a lot of parents come in and say, oh, my, attention deficit, like we jump to ADHD in kids and ask about sleep patterns, and they're not very great. Kids don't have a consistent bedtime. They're waking up whenever. And anyway, so all those erratic sleep patterns lead to a lot of stuff mentally that we're seeing in our everyday life. So, so I thought we would look at sort of that part of it. Now, if you look at the science, if you look at the brain, and what, and I'm sure you could speak to this too, Roni, like our amygdala and our prefrontal cortex and the connections these parts of our brain have with our mood is very clear, right? Yeah. So part of the reason why sleep is important is because those structures in our brain at night, when you get into REM sleep, so rapid eye movement sleep, which is your deeper sleep, one of the important phases of sleep, without going into too much of the technical, is those structures are helping us solidify memories, help with concentration, help with emotional regulation, things that we need when we're out and about in our world, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we sometimes jump over that, and then when we start taking things like sleeping pills, we're affecting those structures and not helping ourselves over time. So anyways, I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about sort of more of that connection and then what we can do about it. Because I find a lot of the time I'm offering people advice that isn't just, I always say to patients, it's so easy to print and sign. Signing a prescription and getting you out the door is a 2-minute thing for me. Having the conversation with you about sleep hygiene and what your life looks like will take me a good 15 minutes, right? Yeah. So, but that conversation is important because you have to try to augment the person's lifestyle and not sort of suppress the problem, right? When you suppress it is when you'll get the side effects. So anyways, what do you see? Do you see a lot of that in your sort of just clinical or day-to-day work?
One thing I've observed is just that when you're not sleeping well, you're not going to make good decisions, number one.
No.
Right? And on top of that, like it's like almost like a chicken and egg theory. When you approach me about this topic, I started thinking about like things like depression, anxiety, lack of sleep, right?
Sure, yeah.
So it's like, is it that the lack of sleep causes anxiety and depression, or is it the anxiety and depression that causes a lack of sleep?
Yes.
Right? So from my perspective, it's more like it's both. Mm-hmm. So it's not like one leads to the other. It's one of the main questions I typically ask people in some of my very first few meetings is, how well are you sleeping? Like, what does sleep look like for you?
Yeah,
right. And then what I find is sometimes like I find people are oversleeping, where they're sleeping like they'll go on no sleep from Sunday night to Thursday night, and then they will sleep almost the entire weekend.
Right.
Like they'll go Friday, like they'll go to sleep maybe around 10, 11, and they don't wake up till 11, 12, 1 o'clock the day after, right?
Day after, yeah.
Thinking that they're kind of catching up on a sleep deficit.
Yeah.
And that also causes like imbalance.
That worsens it,
Right?
actually.
So then you're trying to like catch up, like it messes up with your circadian rhythm. And one thing that I've been able to observe is that people who are able to maintain a really good circadian rhythm in terms of like going to sleep at a consistent time, waking up at a consistent time, they're much better able to adapt to certain situations. Like I think we can all attest to the fact that when we're well rested, and when we're placed in a situation where it could be high stress, we're much better able to handle that stress. I think that's just natural. I think that's like I don't like to use the word common sense, but that's pretty commonsensical, right?
Sure. Yeah.
When I'm well rested, I feel I can handle bigger challenges when they're put on my plate. When I'm not well rested, even the smallest minute challenge seems like it's a massive obstacle, right? And what I am finding is when I am dealing with people who say they are experiencing a great deal of anxiety, it's mostly sometimes due to the fact some of the anxiety issues are even around, am I going to fall asleep tonight?
Oh yeah, it's
Right,
huge.
that's one of the big things, right? Like, am I gonna get like a nice restful sleep?
Yeah.
And then when we start thinking about, are we going to get a good sleep or not? We were already setting the tone before we go to bed that we're not going to go to sleep. Right? So then people toss and turn, especially if there's like a stressful event going on in life. Like I think right now, with a lot of people are struggling with finances and financial. We're trying to figure out, are they going to be financially stable tomorrow, right?
I know.
So if that's creating your lack of sleep, especially for those of us who are parents who are taking care of elderly people within our homes, we're all of us thinking like, am I going to have enough to care for everybody else around me? Mm-hmm. And sometimes the stresses like that kind of keep us up. Like, and stresses could be a multitude of things, right? And I remember being back as a university student myself.
Sure.
Not being able to sleep at nighttime thinking about my exam tomorrow.
I know.
And then realizing how counterproductive it is. If I get a better night's sleep, I probably will do better on my exam.
You'll do better on the exam,
right? And but it's interesting, like our human biology, for some reason, this is what I find fascinating. And you're the doctor, and you can speak to this quite a bit, right? It's like the thing that we need to have the best day tomorrow is the thing that we end up depriving ourselves of when we're worried about tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah.
Like our biology
It's a catch-22.
Yeah, right? Like our biology is so like wired to the fact that there is danger around me, so I'm going to stay up.
Yeah.
Right? And that's essentially what anxiety essentially
That's
is.
what
Like
it is.
You're
on alert.
Highest state of alarm,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I am alarmed that something could harm me or
Something bad's going to happen.
Definitely. So there's a danger that is about to occur tomorrow or in a week from now, and I'm already worried about that danger. And the best way to tackle that danger is to be present and rested today, so
now.
I am better, so I can face that challenge head on. The thing though is, I don't know. I think this is where I think we've flawed biology as humans. I think, or it goes back to our days as maybe cavemen. You could probably speak to more about this, about your amygdala, or when you flip your lid, right? Your prefrontal cortex is out. You're already thinking about worst case scenarios,
yes.
right? And I think that if I just wanted to make it more graphical with what Kenny was talking about, prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, picture this as your brain, and with a lack of sleep, your prefrontal cortex is not operational anymore. So your amygdala is the thing that's consistently is thinking for you, which is your reptilian brain, right? So I think in this situation, what you're describing it's essentially that and
it's the more emotional part of your brain.
Yes.
So you're functioning off emotion now instead of practicality.
Most definitely.
You've shut down that frontal part. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely, right? And I think that's what causes like a lot of challenges. And one of the things I've observed with a lot of my men that I work with is that when they are experiencing a great deal of anxiety, they're all talking about lack of sleep.
Yeah.
And I even in my role in PCHS and doing many home visits, I'm finding that a lot of the families which are stressed, one of the things they say to me is, "Putter mainu neend nahi aayi."
Yeah.
Bahut chardi, right? And I get it. I'm like, you're not sleeping because there is a high stress in a situation that is occurring for you at this present moment.
Right.
So you're not going to be rested.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find, one of the things that you mentioned that I find, so, it's like when you're angry, when people get into a rage, anger mode, we shut down on the front part of the logical thinking is gone. So that's the same thing with sleep. At some point when you're so sleep deprived, that logical part of your brain isn't able to really process the anxiety, the stress, the exam tomorrow, whatever. And so that's when you shut that part down, and then you're not able to practically work through the stress the night before. And another thing, substance use, of course, stimulants will keep you awake. So that's just like common sense sort of. But the other thing that I find, which we'll maybe talk about more in detail, is the device issue. We struggle so much with I struggle so much with our patients in terms of like consistency with sleep routine, not trying to do naps the next day to catch up on sleep. That's a huge actually inhibitor to getting into a good sleep pattern. Is napping and trying to catch up the next day. And the other one is just staying on your device till all hours of the night thinking, well, I can't sleep, so I'll get back on my phone. That actually prevents the brain from shutting down, right? So I always tell people, like, one of the things I say for sleep hygiene is no phone for an hour before bed if you can avoid. Now, I'm not the best follower of that either. We all have our thing, but the devices have to go away, I think.
Is it because of the blue light, or is it because of the...
Well, it's a little bit of the light and how it just activates you, but I also feel like when you're online, whether you open a message or whether you open some social media, you're going to see something that might trigger you. You'll start comparing yourself to somebody else. It just activates the brain more, right? Yeah. It activates your thinking. And then that typically, not in all cases, but if it starts a negative pattern of thinking, well then, you're in trouble because then you're keeping yourself up. So I feel like a lot of coping skills need to be built into that sleep hygiene routine, and also, of course, daytime coping skills. But overall, I think we lack we don't put enough emphasis on what we can actually do about our own sleep patterns, and we're very quick in society these days to jump to a quick fix, because a lot of the time people don't have time to invest in thinking about and changing their patterns, right? It's hard to change a behavior.
Yeah, a lot of people in our community don't spend that time to even fix ourselves.
No, because you're breaking a habit.
Exactly.
And people don't like breaking habits.
Yeah.
It's just like substance use, right? You don't like breaking habits.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, people are, shuffling around in bed at night, and it's a vicious cycle. If you tell yourself, oh my God, I can't sleep. Oh my God, I have to go to bed tonight. And you're in a vicious insomnia cycle, you actually won't sleep. And so I tell my patients, if you've been in bed for approximately 15 minutes, you don't need to look at your phone. If you feel like it's been 10 to 15 minutes and you're not sleeping, you need to get out of bed. You need to get out of bed. Because then you've associated, I can't sleep with your bed. And that association is far worse, right? I was listening to this, I use Headspace, it's an app for different things. We'll talk about them in the next segment. And that's one of the associations. People associate that negative, I can't sleep with the bed. And then it becomes this monster. And the next thing you know, they've developed chronic insomnia because they've told themselves they can't sleep in that particular place. So you have to get out of bed and then do some kind of quiet activity. So I always say to my patients, 15-minute rule. If you're not sleeping, get out of bed. It's amazing, actually, what the human body can function off of. Human beings, yeah, sure, 8 hours of sleep a night, but you can function pretty well on 4 to 6 hours for a long time, even if you're struggling with insomnia. So I always tell patients, stop panicking, because it's okay. You can function on less sleep for a while, so let's figure out what's going wrong, because the panic is actually making you not sleep, right?
Yeah.
It's that cycle. So I think it's a layered issue. I think there's lots of layers to it, but I think dissecting them and helping people sleep better is one of the key things, which you can actually do without medication.
Yeah. Well, it all starts off with sleep, right? Like if you're in negative thoughts and you're not sleeping well at all, it increases that negative thoughts a lot more.
Yeah.
And then you're just worse off and worse off and worse off, and the snowball just starts rolling from there. Because then you have a bad day next day. And so sleep overall itself is just such an important factor in your life, and especially in our households and Punjabi community itself, because some of us are working 2 jobs, right, to be financially independent or however it is, and we forget to sleep, and we forget to take that time for our own bodies to be able to, make ourselves better and be able to function properly for the future, and especially the next day. So we're gonna we'll dive right more into this conversation and get into a little bit more technical
techniques. I think we should talk about techniques and
stuff and treatments, and how we can improve our sleep.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so before we continue the conversation here, I know we're going to get into techniques and how we can, improve our techniques to sleep properly. I do want to touch on, just because we are a Punjabi podcast, and biggest thing in Punjabi community is alcohol and now marijuana. Some use marijuana and other substance uses that affect our sleep, but we think it improves it.
Yeah.
So especially in the Punjabi household, it's alcohol. And मैनू नींद नहीं आंदी ता मैं 2 पैग ला के नींद आ जाएगी, right?
Yeah.
Does that actually, on your guys' practices, do you guys see that? Is there an improvement? What do you think? Well, professional opinion here.
Well, I think if you look at it scientifically, it has the reverse effect. So alcohol actually over time, like in the beginning, it helps get you to sleep, but it doesn't keep you asleep. So you prevent yourself from going into REM sleep, which is your deep state of sleep, which is where you can dream, solidify your concentration, your memories, your emotions. You prevent yourself from going into that. So most of the time with alcohol use disorder patients, they'll come in and start complaining about not sleeping somewhere down the line when that drinking becomes a regular thing, like every day.
Yeah.
कि हुण ओह पहलों पैग help करदे सी, हुण help नहीं करदे, and it's again because of what physiologically alcohol does to your brain and your body. Separate from the effects it has on your body, your liver, and everything else, it's actually not good for your brain, which we know.
Yeah.
So and the same goes for marijuana and all these other things. Like substances in general, obviously, are going to affect your body in some adverse way. Despite nicotine, take nicotine for example, right? It has that stimulant effect. So same thing, you smoke before bed, you may not have the best sleep, And telling people to not smoke, drink, or even smoke marijuana, whatever their drug of choice is, again, it really messes with your patterns, your sleep, circadian rhythm, all that stuff. And so I think it's about, again, substance use is a whole other topic, but it's again moderation and learning how to better your hygiene, right? So yeah, शराब थानू लम्बे अरसे वास्ते नींद तो रोकूगी. And then the other problem is कि ਜਦੋਂ लोकी शराब छੱਡਦੇ हैं ना, it's like what we were talking about. They expect a quick fix. कि ਮੈਨੂੰ शराब ਛੱਡੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਫਤਾ ਆਇਆ ਤੇ ਨੀਂਦ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦੀ, and I know you have to get back to your life. I get that. But the reality is you have to be patient. If you've had a habit of drinking 2 drinks a night for 15 years, well, you ain't going to start sleeping better in 15 days, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So it does require time off work. It does require patience. It requires sleepless nights. But, it's like nothing's easy in life. You got to go through the hard stuff to get to a place that feels good, right?
I like what you mentioned earlier. How long does it take if you get off of alcohol? How long does it take to actually get back into a proper sleep routine?
On average, 6 to 9 months.
6 to 9 months.
Up to a year.
So there's the patience, right?
Yeah. So I see alcohol use disorder patients that aren't sleeping well 6 months later.
Wow.
And we can medicate that. Sure. We could give them. So, typically what I'll do is if we talk about medications, we'll start with melatonin over the counter. Your brain produces it every night. So you can kind of augment yourself with melatonin. I'll sometimes put them on a B vitamin because a lot of alcohol use disorder patients are vitamin B deprived. So I'll get them on a B6, B12, whatever. Sometimes you can use magnesium as long as you don't have any other major health conditions. You can try magnesium because it's a muscle relaxer. So just things like that, which again, you can get magnesium through pumpkin seeds. You can get it through food. You don't have to take a supplement, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the basic techniques to get people back on a good cycle. And then typically with alcohol use disorder or substance use disorder in general, people are medicating their something with the substance. So for some of us, it's anxiety or depression or some mental health issue. So if I use a antidepressant for sleep, then it has both things. It helps with the mood during the day and it helps with the sleep at night. So that person's not taking another antidepressant during the day and then taking a sleeping pill. They can just kind of take something at night that helps for mood the next day and helps for sleep the night before. So, you try to do things like that as techniques to help. But I really, again, prescription as a third, fourth choice. Really focusing on bettering their life before throwing a pill at them.
And in your practice, have you found any different things that people have been trying to get better sleep? Because the people reach out to you because they're having, social issues or any like personal issues. What do they do have they talked about, when they say they can't sleep, ki kariye? What do you do?
I've had a few interesting situations where I've had people say that they'll drink throughout the night. I'll start drinking at like 7, 8 o'clock, I'll drink, then I'll go to sleep. And then if I wake up, I'll have a few more drinks, then go back to
Somebody
sleep.
told me that the other day. They wake up 2 o'clock in the morning and start drinking again.
So drinking, yeah.
I was like,
they'll
what?
have a few more drinks, then they'll go back to sleep. Then when they wake up, and for me, it was so foreign, right? And then one thing that I've also seen is that people do that, or another thing that comes up quite a bit is taking just like smoking a lot of marijuana before going to bed, right?
Yeah.
Or taking edibles, right? And I find a lot of people think that it puts them to sleep. One thing that a lot of people that I've observed when they get off of marijuana, what they always the big thing that I hear is they start dreaming again.
Oh yeah.
Right, marijuana becomes like a dream suppressant. Then all of a sudden, when you get off marijuana, it releases your dreams, right? And so the dreams are so vivid and they're so colorful, right? I just think I think if the habit becomes I gotta smoke a little bit of weed before I go to bed every night, that's what ends up happening. And then you end up associating smoking weed with going to sleep. Or you end up associating alcohol with going to sleep. I think it's all about just creating different habits with sleep. When we talk about sleep hygiene and whatnot, right? If it's okay if I just talk about that,
let's actually. I want to talk about that.
Yeah,
I think that would be really
dive
helpful.
into it right now.
I think that just developing like a routine which makes sense, right? And I think
So, what's a good routine?
like I'm in a, you could call me, you could say I'm either in a fortunate position or unfortunate position. I don't have any kids right now, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, not having any kids, my sleep routine is a lot easier. I'm not worried about putting a little one to bed before I go to sleep, right?
Yeah, you can read your novel.
I could read at night. I could do lots of other different things for myself that allow me to go to sleep, right? So my sleep routine generally involves me, flossing and brushing my teeth. My body's already getting ready. That associates this.
Yeah.
It's associating flossing and brushing and going to bed. Washing my face, putting a little bit of lotion on my face, going to bed, pulling out my novel and then just reading a book for 20 minutes to half an hour. And by that time, I kind of feel I'm really settled.
Yeah.
I'll put the book aside and I'll go to bed.
Like you're shutting down.
I'm shutting down,
Right.
yeah. And sometimes, like I know we talked about the devices being prevalent. I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I'll watch a YouTube video as well before I go to bed. Or a couple of YouTube videos, right? And I'll watch, I'm really into politics and political theory. I think people really know me well and really understand that.
That'll put you to sleep. Oh yeah.
Well, like for me, I find it really like invigorating and like enlightening, right?
Yeah.
But you still can fall asleep.
Like still fall asleep after it. I fall asleep with some of those ideas, which and I think that's how I typically. That's for me. That's how I fall asleep, right?
Yeah.
And I think my routine is kind of set that I know when I start doing certain things, I'm getting ready to go to bed. Right. And I think that's just me being like not worrying about having a little one. I think you being a parent, I think your sleep routine would be a lot more.
It can be more erratic. I think one thing I'll say for parents as a side note is, there is this whole thing about sleep training. Or just sleeping more wisely, I guess you could say. There's lots of theories out there. You don't have to go nuts, but a newborn or babies can sleep through the night around 3 to 4 months. Really depends on the parents and how you develop that routine. So, there's lots of parents I see, especially women that get a year off on maternity, a year into the baby's life, they're still feeding at night. Well, those aren't ideal techniques. And then that creates a very vicious cycle of you have a kid that at whatever age isn't sleeping through the night. So there are things parents can do from the get-go to really make sure that they prime their child's sleep, which I talked about in the first part. The reason why that helps is because if you're priming your child's sleep, that child is less likely to have the mental health issues, the attention deficit, all those things that we've talked about, concentration, memory, and whatever, emotional regulation, right? So, I mean, as a parent, you're right. It's definitely more tough. You've got to put that half an hour has to be dedicated to that child. Bed, and the same thing for the kid, what's the routine for the kid? Like you have a routine, that's sort of that sleep hygiene. What's the routine for the kid? Okay, a bath, and then we're gonna do. So dinner's done, a bath, and then we're gonna do a book in bed. It's priming the body, right? A book in bed, brush teeth, book in bed, lights out, right? And it's when you just start letting them run around like whatever that you lose that pattern, that routine. So I think we're creatures of habit. Human beings are creatures of habit, right? We like our routines. We like our habits. Habits are hard to break. So if you can get into a really good sleep routine, it's actually really beneficial to yourself, isn't it?
100%. I think it's the ultimate form of self-care.
It is such a good form of self-care.
And I think that that's such a buzzword that gets thrown around nowadays.
Yeah.
When people are like,
Self-time, self-care.
But what exactly is self-care, right? And I'm like, self-care, it means like I'm well rested in the morning.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, when my alarm clock goes off, or if I
want to get out of bed.
Yeah, I get out of bed. I'm like, wow, that was really good night's sleep. Or sometimes I've had great dreams. I'm like, oh man, I wish I could just sleep another 10, 20 minutes longer, right? But generally speaking, it's all about like just being able to rest all night. And I think that another thing, and I am keeping in mind of socioeconomic context as well too, is I think getting a really good mattress, spending money on the mattress, on the pillow, your
environment.
Like the sheets. That's all important. I think sometimes we don't really pay a lot of attention to that.
I know.
And I think that that's really important if you are concerned about self-care. I want to have a nice, comfortable bed to go to sleep in. Yeah, and then like I know one of my really good friends always says this. There's two things. If you're going to spend money on two things, make sure one of them is a really good mattress.
A mattress.
Yeah. And that the second one he said was a card, but like we'll keep the first one onto the mattress, right? But generally speaking, like I think getting a mattress is.
Well, and if you do something, I feel like it's like what you said, for me, it was bedding. Like I was really into just like, I want to buy myself a nice bedding set one day. Yeah. But it's really interesting because once I bought it, it was and again, of course, finances, right? You keep that stuff in mind. But if you can, it's actually interesting because your mind and body look forward to wanting to go to sleep. You have to create a positive relationship with your sleep, I think. Once you create that negative connotation or feeling with sleep, you're stuck. I remember going through a period of insomnia. It was horrible. I would be up till 3, 4 in the morning. But the 15-minute rule saved me because I got out of bed and said, I'm done. That's it. I'm not staying in bed. Because you lay there and then you just get into the worst possible headspace.
Or the thing is, it depends what you want to think about. Like I know I one of the tricks I always use is I thought like I like thinking about things I like when I go to bed, and I think I've been able to train myself to think of this way, right? And me being a big hip hop head. Or I like to like start thinking about some of my favorite hip hop artists and some of the songs that they have, or how would I rank them, right? And I find that kind of puts me to sleep, or
you're thinking about something positive,
right?
Yeah.
Or I start thinking about like, or my other favorite one I like to do is if I'm having a challenge going to sleep is I take the jersey numbers of every single hockey player from 99 to 1. And I try to think of the best hockey player that wore number 99, the best hockey player that wore number 98, number 97. And by the time I get to like 81, I'm passed out.
See, it's interesting because you're talking. So I sometimes do that. Like I have I would say a mind that doesn't. It's harder to shut down at night. So I tell myself sometimes if you're going to think in bed, it has to be about something positive.
Yeah.
I'll tell myself that.
Well, think something pleasant.
And then I tell myself, go ahead, think all you want. Instead of trying to shut your brain down, because it's not going to shut down, just go nuts. And then I'll tell myself that I can think. And then I think about the pleasant, positive things. And before I know it, I'm asleep. Yeah. So it does make a difference. Yeah.
Well, just thinking about like, what I need to get done tomorrow and all those things.
That's the worst.
It just makes it worse because your brain is active again. Yeah. And you're just not going to go to sleep. And I think I just want to add on to like the mattress and stuff, but the temperature of the room, because apparently the cooler the room, the better sleep you have.
Yes.
Right? Definitely, yeah. So like and some people need a little bit of background noise. Some people
background noise too. Right?
Like I always have my fan on every night. It could be minus 40, plus 40. That fan's on every night, right?
Right? Some people are diehard fan people.
I know people that like listen to like ASMR. Right, like there's different like sounds that are playing. Or they'll play it off their phone.
Their phones. There's YouTube videos that are. This is what I was mentioning earlier, like techniques. Like there's YouTube videos for sleep. I use the Headspace app. They have a whole sleep series on it. And then you pick a sleep one. There's RAIN and all these other things. There's another technique which I was going to mention. Progressive muscle relaxation. I actually learned it from Headspace. And PMR, you progressively relax different muscle groups in your body while laying in bed, and she coaches you through it on your phone, and then it kind of forces the body into relaxing if you can't on your own, right? But there's lots of different things you can do, like meditation techniques. So even CBT, like you said, positive, pleasant emotions. That's cognitive behavioral therapy. You're telling your brain to think about something pleasant or good that can help your brain calm down to get to a place of restful, restorative sleep, right?
Or I like to use a little more of like a narrative approach. It's more like, what's the story I'm telling myself about sleep, right?
Yeah,
and,
of course. How are you talking to yourself about sleep? Yeah.
And it's like, how am I like getting my body primed for sleep, and talk about that. What's the final chapter of my day look like, right?
Yeah.
And how am I writing it, and how am I getting ready for tomorrow, and how am I getting ready to go to sleep right now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's good. I think doing all those things. So, I mean, the goal for me at least was to make sure we emphasized like, different ways to prime our bodies for sleep at night. Because I think human beings underestimate how important sleep actually is to our everyday life.
Yeah.
Like even as I was thinking about talking about it, all this stuff came up where I was like, oh yeah, there's this and there's this and
Yeah.
yeah.
And like one of our co-hosts, he's not here today, but he's a pretty big guy.
Yeah.
I think getting the sleep in has helped him really grow buff up.
Yeah, we'll grow his
100%.
muscles, right? What's the
Exercise
domino
more?
effect? It's the domino effect, right? Like we got to imagine that
Well,
if you're not sleeping properly, then the rest of your day, all the negative,
yeah.
Everything goes up,
everything goes down.
And I think that one of the things, that I think is important is not being too hard on yourself. If you didn't
Yeah.
sleep, you didn't sleep.
You didn't sleep.
Some of us are just like my brother Sartaj, he's just this, like the guy can fall asleep anywhere. Put him on a couch and he's
Yeah.
out. And some of us just aren't like that. And that's
Yeah.
okay. You just have to create a routine that works for you and just accept the fact that if you didn't sleep well for a couple nights, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So we sort of panic, and the panic makes it worse.
Yeah, panic does. And like one of my former supervisors, she always just told me was sleep is the only natural performance enhancer
Yeah. There you go.
you have, right?
Right.
Yeah. So it is. It's definitely a big impact on your life and your
Yeah.
lifestyle if you're not sleeping properly, right? And the causes that it has towards your mental health and everything that goes around you throughout your day, especially in our community, and especially we work hard, and if we're not getting proper sleep, we're just not doing well. So
You're not going to function. Yeah.
yeah, and you're not going to function, and it just adds up, and you're just adding. So the easiest way is get some sleep, get some
Yeah.
proper sleep, get into bed, listen to some of the techniques that we just talked about, and maybe that'll help you fall asleep a lot better. And we can get into sleep can go into a lot more, because I was listening to the podcast and they got into like talking about dreams and how those affect our sleep and everything.
Sure.
And so, and hopefully in the future episodes we'll talk about and we'll dive more into that.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we can end it there, because I think that was a great conversation, and I think the
Yeah, it was
techniques and
good.
everything.
Yeah.
Pretty good. Yeah, I enjoyed this today.
Importance of sleep is huge, right? Let us know if you practice anything different, you any techniques that you guys have, any suggestions that you have, and keep liking the episodes, keep liking the videos. Introduce yourselves, message us on DM and email us, and you can get in touch with Ronnie Paji as well, or Kenny D, for anything that you need help with, professionally or socially, and then we can go from there. But if you have any questions, suggestions, comments, leave them down below. Share this video. Make sure you get this out, and subscribe. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe and like us on Instagram, and follow us there, and follow the journey, because we got a lot more things coming up. And thank you guys for coming out today.
Yeah, it was
and
good.
having this conversation.
Thank you.
Okay? Bye. Peace.
Peace.